Welcome back to the channel. This is the action figure grader, and I've got a throat lozenge going right now because I failed miserably trying to film this video 3 times now because I'm so sick. But I wanted to get some content recorded for you guys while I travel for a wedding by the time this one airs. So we've got some loose graded variants that I wanted to go through that are really nice. And we've got some foreign variants that my Patreon supporters snapped up when I sent those out in Buy It Now alerts that I wanted to go through, along with some AFA graded examples, just lots of interesting sales prices as we dig into 2025, and who knows what the future holds for the vintage Star Wars collectibles market. So let's start off with a couple of blue snags that sold. First was a UKG 80% that sold at an auction, 628 pounds, which is $792. Pretty clean example overall. The belt buckle on this one did have some belt rub on the silver belt buckle, but otherwise a very clean example with the toe dent and no discoloration to the torso. Again, $790 in US dollars, and then this one sold for $683 US dollars. This one was an AFA 80 with the toe dent, and I would argue that this one's probably in maybe a little better condition in terms of the belt buckle, but the boots were not. The boots did have some color rub there at the bottom, whereas this one, the boots were probably a little better, but the belt buckle wasn't as nice. So pick your poison there. But a lot of this price difference may be just attributed to the currency conversion right now. Usually the pound versus the dollar does cause a little bit of price discrepancy when you start comparing apples to apples, but $792, and then this one sold for $683. Only one bid on that one, but I think both of those were pretty good pickups, pretty fair prices. Gold Star Tech had this really cool baggie. This was the Japanese Takara wind-up R2-D2 that came out in 1978, and this one was graded AFA 85. Not an item you see very often on eBay. This is usually kind of reserved for Hakes and Heritage, things like that, but that one did sell in an auction for $1,010, which surprised me a little bit. I was expecting kind of $750 to $850 in that ballpark maybe, and it blew past that number. But, you know, I think a lot of these prices, when they really blow past my expectations, a lot of it comes down to how often you see them on eBay. And this is not an item that I remember on eBay, you know, in an auction in a while. And occasionally you'll see them loose graded. I think even Gold Star Tech has one as of the making of this video that is loose graded for sale. It may not be them. It might be a different seller, but just kind of an oddball item that does not pop up very often. So when they do pop up, a lot of these oddball items or rare items do tend to command some big boy money. Next up, we had Brian's Toys. They had a few AFA graded examples. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they had this Hong Kong Stormtrooper graded AFA 85. Very clean example there. Just a slight color difference between the torso and the limbs, but you know, I can see why it got the 85. It's a pretty clean example. $251 on that one. And then we had a solid dome R2-D2 standard Hong Kong AFA 85 that sold for $300 in an auction. Just slight yellowing to the sticker on that one, but that was a pretty clean example, and $300 was a very fair price to pay. And this one surprised me. Okay, so in maybe 1 or 2 videos ago for loose graded items, I talked about how it was a good time to try and pick up the long eye tubes version of the Tusken Raider in high grade, if that's one you're looking for, because they've been selling around $190, and I said I'm used to kind of $250, $260 for that particular variant in an AFA 85. So if you're looking for one, try to get it for that $190 number. Well, then of course Brown's 88 had one for sale in an auction. It was an AFA 85 long eye tubes, and it sold for $337. So you just can't predict what some of these prices are going to do. This was an interesting variation. This was the green stitch on bottom of the robe for the Jawa, and it was a high grade, in all fairness, AFA 85 plus. You can see the color difference at the bottom of the robe there. It's kind of a green stitch versus around the wrists, which is the more typical light brown stitch. So just a weird variation where the stitch color is different between the wrists and around the hood and at the bottom of the robe. $511, big number there, but again, it was an AFA 85 plus, and even like a standard stitch color is probably going to set you back $350 to $400 in an 85 plus grade. So big number there. Next up is the always difficult to find small head Han with the painted legs. The molded legs are usually the ones that you see for the small head Han. This was an AFA 85 as well. And I've seen them go over $600, but they just don't pop up on eBay very regularly to give me a really good idea of where this one was going to end. It did sell at $574, and I kind of equate it to the molded legs variation for Han Solo Hoth. That's a really tough variant to track down. It's not going to be $574 in an auction. Maybe it would, I don't know. But it's about as difficult to find as the painted legs small head Han. So it's kind of odd how the painted legs is the tougher variant to find in the Han First 12 small head. But when you get to Han Hoth, it's a totally different story. It's the molded legs that's really difficult to find. So I'll be curious to see what the next molded legs Han Hoth AFA 85 or higher goes for. Will it hit 574? I think probably not, just because it's a later figure, but I can't tell you the last time I've seen one. I haven't seen one at all. So very cool variation, though. Big number. Next up was a CAS graded 12-inch Boba Fett. You can see his arms kind of sticking out there. That probably shifted in grading. I think CAS needs to add some wrist brackets to keep the arms in place, but overall a nice display with the cape kind of framed, and then you got the rocket pack and his weapon up there. It's a very nice display. CAS 75 was the grade on that one, and that one sold for $613 in an auction. 30 bids on that one. Higher grade examples usually do cross over into $700 or $800, so I could see $613. That seems to be about the fair number there. And maybe if you tap the case very gently, that arm will bend back into place, but it does look a little wonky there with that arm sticking out. Some other CAS graded items. These were all loose graded 3 3/4 inch figures from Toy Scout. Occasionally they do have loose graded figures that they submit to CAS and then resell, but this was a CAS 90 grade C-3PO. That one sold for $241.50. We had a Hong Kong COO for Princess Leia First 12, CAS 85 plus, big number on that one. And that one sold for $345, which is about what an AFA 85 sells for, maybe a little bit lower than that, I don't know, but that was a very clean example and certainly deserving of an 85 grade. Leia's are tough to grade with any of the grading companies. It doesn't matter who it is. So to me, it looks like an 85 plus, and I think it would get an 85 pretty easily from AFA, but they do grade those very, very harshly, but it was a clean example. And next up was the red-haired, well, it's labeled brown-haired. To me, it looks like the red hair, but it's really tough to tell on some of these glamour shots from CAS. These are photos that when you submit to CAS, they send you the photos back along with the grade for the item. So because of the lighting, maybe this is really the brown hair. It looks like the red hair to me, but I always have trouble differentiating the two of them for the Leia Hoth. But this one was labeled brown-haired, CAS 85. That one sold for $117 and change. And then here was a indoor combat poncho Princess Leia graded CAS 90. Very, very high grade. No COO, as they all are, except for, I think the Ledy. I don't know what, I assume the Ledy is also a no COO, just has a different paint scheme and things like that. But this Leia indoor was super clean. I think the Ledy comes with a gray silencer type version of the pistol versus this kind of B-wing pilot type pistol. $187.50 for that 90 grade on that one. And then here was a Han Solo Carbonite with the coin, which was a nice display. Graded CAS 85 plus, 90 for the coin. Figure got an 85, so very, very cool there. You could say maybe that the torso looks a little yellow. It does to me anyway, so that's why the figure got an 85. But I mean, to me, if you got a yellow torso It's very slight, but it's there. I don't know how you give that an overall 85 plus. I think this should probably default back to an 85 at best, if not lower than that, just because of the slight. Now, I mean, maybe they're all doing that. I don't know. But to me, it just looks like there's a slight color difference between the torso piece, even around the crotch area, versus the legs and the arms. But that one did, man, his neck is so ridiculous. Why did they make his neck so big? He looks like Chris W. from Rogue 5 Toys. I don't understand why they made his neck so big. $316 on that one. All right, on to the beautiful variants that Treasures from the Attic sold for. And again, I apologize about my voice. It's terrible. I'm still fighting this cold or respiratory thing. But here were a bunch that sold, and almost all of these were picked up by my Patreon supporters using my eBay affiliate link. So before I dig into these, I just want to say thanks to you guys for using the affiliate links. And I really, really appreciate the channel support. It does help out the channel a lot. And I heard from a number of you that bought some of these figures, or almost all of these figures actually. This was a no COO Darth Vader, a little tougher to find than no COO. Super beautiful figure there. Graded UKG 85% for a very fair price of 115 pounds, which is $145. You're talking about a 170 shipped for a very, very nice looking, every bit deserving of an UKG 85%. So very nice figure there for the no COO variant. This would be packed in on like Palatoy card backs or the Tri-Logos. So again, $145 on that one. Here was the PBP leathered cape Darth Vader, graded UKG 85. And that's a tougher variant to track down, is that textured leather cape Spanish PBP. And that one sold for 150 pounds, which is $190 US. PBP leathered cape Scar COO on that one. But that one was a stunner as well. I mean, I paid almost that much for mine loose ungraded, if not around the same price. So that's a really good deal, I think, for a UKG 85. This was an interesting variation. This is the textured cape Leia Bespin, and you can see very clearly there the texture on that cape. It's got a little zip to it. And this was the no COO. I'm used to the textured cape Leia being the Hong Kong. So to get a textured cape no COO, that's kind of a nice variation. It was also labeled translucent blaster, and you can see very clearly there that it's a much more translucent blaster versus the typical Hong Kong, which is a deeper, darker blue color. So very cool variation there. Textured cape, no COO. Figure got a 90, paint got an 85, cape got an 85. So, and it was listed for a very fair price of 200 pounds, which is $252 US. My AFA 85 textured cape Leia, I paid quite a bit more than this price for it. So that was a good deal for somebody there. Here was a Paleface PBP AT-AT Commander, graded UKG 80%. And that's a very unique and kind of known variation where he's got that really pale face. The AT-AT Commander, General Veers needs to get outside in the sun a little bit. I mean, he is wearing way too much SPF as he travels the frozen tundra of Hoth to destroy the energy shield generator. But very cool figure. I'd like to get that one day. That one sold for 110 pounds, which is $138 US. And this is a tough one to track down. Very tough one. This is the Spanish Poch Lando Calrissian with the infamous black neck. And this is one I do have. This one was graded UKG 80%, and he did have that textured cape. You know it's that Poch because he's got that bubbly paint texture to the hands. That's a very common thing for Spanish Pochs. Not just for Lando, but for a lot of other figures as well. The paint just starts to bubble on their hand. So he did a nice close-up there, so you know what you're getting. But you know it's the Spanish Poch Lando because he's got that black neck. That's the only variation that has that. There is also a Poch with a brown neck, but I feel like the black neck Poch is Lando is just one of those variants that people really like. So that one did sell for 425 pounds, which is $536. I've got a UKG 85. I would argue it's about the same condition as this 80%, to be honest with you. And I paid a lot more for mine. So I thought that was a good deal for somebody there. So great deal there. Next up is the one that everyone wants. This is the Tri-Logo Boba Fett with the light blue color scheme to his uniform. This one had the painted knee and the unpainted dart, which I consider to be one of the more common ones. But this one was a beautiful UKG 85, and it was every bit of an 85. That was super, super clean. No chipping to the armor, no chipping to the face visor. Those are the two spots on the Tri-Logo Spanish PBP, really. Boba Fett that tend to really show the paint wear is around the chest armor and then on the visor. But this one was super clean and definitely an 85 grade. And you can see there it's got the Tri-Logo. It says Tri-Logo, but it's got the Scar COO. So these were Spanish PBP figures. Straight 85s for the sub scores on that one. And that one sold for 475 pounds, which is $600. I would have paid that in an absolute heartbeat. So congrats whoever got that one. That one was a beauty. Next up was a Spanish Poch Han Solo. Little tougher to find the Spanish Pochs versus the Spanish PBP, so it's a little more expensive usually. But this is one I do have in my collection as well, in the same grade, I think, too. And I paid a lot more for mine. So this one sold for 225 pounds, which is 283 US dollars. But that one was a stunner. Very, very clean figure there. And you know, he's got kind of a lighter chest paint, lighter pale hands, and then usually the head is a little bit darker. So that's kind of the case there. And you can see some paint degradation on the arms, which is also very common for the Spanish Pochs. But that's every bit of an 80% for the Spanish Poch, and worth every penny at that price point. Finally, we're going to finish off with some Ledys. Going back to Brian's Toys, he had an AFA 85 Ledy Chief Chirpa, fairly common figure, but a nice example. 152.50 on that one. And this one was ungraded, but I wanted to include it. Gold Star Tech had this overstock, unpainted head, Ledy Death Squad Commander. Very cool overstock figure. That one sold for $356. And, you know, CAS will grade these if you're into kind of grading this stuff. But anytime you get these kind of unfinished figures from the Ledy factory as they were going out of business, they do tend to command some premiums on the secondary market. So a lot of these figures were non-sonic welded. Some of them were. Some of them were partially painted like this one. So very cool figure there for $357. And then finally, I was surprised by the final sales price on this. It was only a UKG 70%, but it is the harder to find Burgundy Cape Ledy Squid Head. Very clearly the Burgundy Cape on that one. But again, not the highest grade. At 70%, and it had the older case style as well. And it still sold for 540 pounds, which is 681 US dollars. That's about what I paid for my CAS 85 Plus for this figure. So that's one that is definitely jumping up in price, at least over in the UK it is. So it might, you know, again, it comes down to location, because we here in the US, we get a lot of Ledys. But we don't get a lot of Spanish Pochs and Spanish PBPs and a lot of those foreign variants and Meccano variants, things like that you guys over in the UK get. And so you guys may not pay the same premiums for the Spanish figures that we are willing to pay here in the US, and vice versa for the Ledys. Getting a Ledy Burgundy Cape Squidhead is not that difficult over here. But maybe over there to have one that's already graded is maybe a little tougher. So that can result in some higher bid prices. And so that's just speculation on my part, but that could play a factor. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to leave me a like if you did. Thanks for putting up with my voice as I try to recover from this respiratory thing. I'll be back very soon, and thanks again for watching.